Hello everyone, so today I want to talk about Eeltail Tricolor and why it's one of the worst maps we've gotten for Tricolor and also one of the best. It's complicated. But I'm going to talk about this in Tricolor as a whole, just kind of second channel ramble, because I played some Splatfest and I'm done playing on this map, to say the least. So, I'll start by saying that the spawn area back here is basically worse. Not only is it really far from the Ultra Signal, like compared to most other Tricolor maps, this is even further than most. You don't want the attackers to be too far away from the defender spawn to it because it just makes it way harder to attack the signal. And on top of that, this area is really large. If you queue into one person who doesn't have a good painting weapon, this takes a long time to paint up. I don't know why the spawn wasn't like move forward over here or something, but this area is already not great. Moving on from there, you get to the main part of Eeltail that's really bad is this bridge. Retaking this bridge is really, really annoying. Now, it's a bit better because this part is graded, so switching from the left to the right side is a little bit more difficult. But outside of that, you'll notice that they also made it harder for attackers to get into the bridge. There is a ramp here, but this left block, which in-game I'm going to show real quick, is this area. This is one of the few only routes to attack the bridge from high ground is up here. You know, the other one being top right. But this connects directly to the bridge. So if you can get a guy up here who sneaks in, gets an assassination kill, you're immediately on the bridge compared to that top right side. This part is really, really valuable to be able to retake. The reason this route isn't as great is because they made this, you know, not a ramp like it used to be. So if you commit down here to go to this area, you're very like caught out in the open, you're very cornered, you're very easily seen and bombed out of position. But like, it's there. It's straight up not there here. So you're approaching on these ramps. And on top of that, of course, the backward ramp here is gone. So if you approach the bridge from this right side and you fall, you basically have to loop around either of these ways. So 2 entrance routes were taken out. This is a ramp instead of a sponge, which is nice, but it doesn't really add too much to it. So this stage, this worst problem is that this is more attacker lockout, or sorry, defender lockout heavy than it already is. And this is already the most lockout heavy stage in the entirety of Splatoon 3. This is the hardest stage to retake because you're approaching high ground from low ground with limited routes going in one direction. Like, it's awful. However, in mid there are some cool changes. The area they've expanded for the spawn regions is pretty cool, but it also adds this terrain to get onto the bridge from here. Which, in Tricolor mode, is bad because it means it's super easy for, oh no, it went wrong on Defender, respawn, walk back on bridge here, or walk back on bridge here, and you just hold and lock out. But if this map was in a 4v4 setting, and these were just open, you know, maybe condense them a little because they're a little big, then all of a sudden this is now a route, and if you're under, you can now flank the bridge through this wide path. And on top of that, you now have these blocks. Now, these blocks aren't perfect. Yeah, here's another example of that earlier. These blocks aren't perfect because this part of it isn't inkable for no reason. And here's also the problem with this flank where you can't climb this part of the wall. Being able to wall jump up here would be really nice, but like you can go wide flank. This part of the wall you can't wall jump up, but this is basically a cool new added route. And in general, I think this kind of mid layout is much more open. There's still a bit of a lack of cover, and going from the right side is still really bad. Like, trying to go right side to bridge, especially with the connected bridge, is really the awkward part. Like, you can, you know, drop down here, but you don't have anywhere to go. This side of the map is really what's improved. Like, left side out of your spawn is where you have 2 different options. But even then, if you're able to push and take this right side, you get access to both these routes. It does feel rewarding. However, all of this works better in a 4v4 mode setting. In Tricolor, this is fine, but this is not an optimal path to really approach the Ultra Signal from. Like, it's really awkward to go and do this block jump, especially without the squid roll to make it faster. This bridge route is obviously the better one to go and where people are going to go. And it's kind of led to one of the worst Tricolor experiences where I think defenders lock out very easily. You just kind of camp, lock out the bridge, and even if you are an attacker, you have so much of your spawn region to take care of that it's a bit annoying. And this is kind of my issue with Tricolor in general. I personally haven't felt that any of the Tricolor stages are amazing. There are some that I've liked a little bit more than others. I can't speak for Hammerhead specifically because that was before the change and it was pretty much impossible to get it. But out of the Tricolor stages, Undertow has felt kind of shit to me. Like, I haven't liked it. Mincemeat was okay. It was tolerable. I think Sturgeon was solid after the rework. Mako, I think, was solid, and Barnacle was okay. It had some one-sided issues as well, but it was fine. The only stage I have really enjoyed in Tricolor, and I think most people will agree on this one, is Scorch. And Scorch was not... This was not this Scorch Gorge, but with the sides added. The reason Scorch was fun is because it wasn't Scorch. The stage we played on the Splatfest was the giant triangle thing. That is not what this map is. But just having a stage with that unique triangle spawn and layout, as simple as it is, kind of fit the mode better. My issue with Tricolor is they've been trying to make these stages, which barely work as 4v4 maps. Like, they're not well designed for that at all. Try to make work for 2v2v2v2, which, like, you're adding even more depth to a stage that is way too hollow in general. Like, on bigger maps like Splatoon 1 stages, like S1 Monkey or Flounder, you could see much easier renovations to make this happen, but trying to just jut out these side areas, which these side areas are really valuable in maps that are hallways, only to fill them with defenders makes it feel even worse. You're putting people in even more cramped locations. And I think that's part of why Tricolor has really felt kind of bad. Personally, I think shifty stations are very overrated. I'll say the hot take. Most shifty stations were not fun to play. It was a gimmick, and it was cool for a little bit, and then it got old. Very few shifty stations actually worked and stood the test of time and are fun to revisit. And the ones that do are usually those with an exceptionally fun gimmick. I think Tricolor is a much more interesting and unique gimmick than most shifty stations, but the problem is you're just playing them on normal maps. If a normal map was just slapped with a cannon or a ride rail, it would be fine. And in this map, it might even, in these stages in general, might make them feel a little bit more interesting. But it wouldn't be as expressive as adding these elements to a map that is built around them. And that's the problem. These maps have Tricolor on them, but they are not built for Tricolor. We are just trying to save resources here by reusing maps. But these maps are not made for the mode. And again, they're not even good in the 4v4 mode they're made for. Like, look at this map. Look at, like... If this looks like this for this, like in this mode, all of this is this bad, how is it going to work in a completely different mode? So, my review on Tricolor, TLDR, because I've talked about this on the main channel, my updated review. I think this mode could be better than Shifty's if it had its own maps. But it really does need its own kind of stages. Because I don't think it's going to work on maps like this. I mean, maybe we'll see some better stages. Stuff like Sturgeon and Mako are at the very least more playable. They're fine. But I want to see some good Tricolor stages, and I hope we can see that in the future.